on the stage with me, I've got the creative team, members of the creative team who put together the show. So first of all, Dylan Schlosberg. Tell me if I get the pronunciation wrong. Are we ready to start? Oh, we're also, by the way, we're also filming this, so we will share it on Facebook via Southwark and different places. So Dylan Schlosberg, who is the composer, Michael Conley, who is the book writer and lyricist, Neil Marcus, who is the producer, Charlotte Westenra, who is the director, and Reddel. Gosh, I got it right. Okay, so they didn't tell me who was the musical. Thank you very much. Who is the musical supervisor and arranger. And this is actually, it's really good to have a musical supervisor and arranger because people don't, I think a lot of people who don't write musicals don't realize what goes into arranging the music. So thank you guys for joining us. So I want to start, please, Dylan, with you, because I believe that this project actually started with you. Where did the idea come from to create a musical based on Indecent Proposal?
Oh, well, I'm a little nervous, so please forgive me. I think about 5 years ago, I was thinking of an idea for a musical, looking for a dramatic love story, something that was edgy, that perhaps my style of songwriting could reflect. I knew of the film, and then I found out that it was actually a book written by Jack Engelhard. So I read the book and thought this could be very interesting. I was a member of MMD, and I knew that Neil...
And MMD stands for?
Mercury Musical Development. Neil? And Neil was head of that for a few years, and I remember, so I emailed him and I said, oh, Neil, what do you think I should do? This could be a very interesting musical. And he said, well, you need to see if you can get the rights first. So he sent me the link to the author's page, and I contacted the author. And that's when a bit of luck set in, because he got back to me in about 3 hours and said he owned the rights. And usually with a title like Indecent Proposal, you would think the film studio, which is Paramount, would have the rights. But in those days, apparently, they often didn't take the theatre rights. And he said, yes, he would love to. He'd love it to be a musical. There was a play in Holland a few years ago.
Yeah.
So I sent him a couple of songs and tried to give him an idea of where this might go as a musical, and he was very supportive. So I then went back to Neil and I said, what do we do now? And,
yeah.
And hold on, just one. Do I see people going to join us?
We've got some of our cast here, yes.
Yes, come.
Jacqui?
Come.
Okay, that's a start.
I think she needs a round.
Jacqui Dankworth, thank you for joining us. Hello, I'm Terri. Nice to meet you. You're wonderful. Great, so Neil, pick up the story. What happened next?
So we were talking about assembling a creative team, and I knew Michael's work, and it always impressed me, and I thought, okay, these two could be simpatico. So I said, why don't you have a coffee and see how you get on?
And
Michael?
how did you get on?
We got on very well.
very well, yeah.
And Michael, you did not raise your hand when I said who's seen the film. So you hadn't seen the film.
No, I'm obviously far too young to have seen the film when it came out. No, I just completely missed it, which is lucky in the end.
Miscounted the chairs.
Oh well.
We absolutely have.
It's still crazy.
Okay, and so we are joined by Norman Bowman. Hello, Norman.
Hello.
Akka Mitchell. Lizzy Conley. Is it Connor?
Yes, it is.
Connor going?
Well done.
Thank you.
Have the Scottish
We're
contingent.
just going to extend, and the people sitting behind them are just really lucky members of the audience. Join the cast. Okay, so yeah, Michael, you hadn't seen the film?
I hadn't seen the film, no. So I read the book, and Dylan and I met up, and I just seen there was a lot in there that I could hold on to, especially the Atlantic City setting in the late '80s, which I do remember.
Yeah. And were you tempted at any point to watch the film, or did you just make a conscious decision?
Just because when you don't have the rights to the screenplay, you only have the rights to the book, so you don't want to be tempted to steal something that you shouldn't.
Is what we've seen tonight quite faithful to the book?
No, it's quite.
We kept it in Atlantic City, so that's a cool thing. But the book is it's quite a quite a ride, and we couldn't really go as far.
Yeah, no, it was just a central premise and the setting and the timing of it. I mean, there's lots of things that we took from the book, absolutely. But yeah, we tried to focus on it and reinvent it for the theatre.
And you said you got the rights from Jack Engelhard.
Yeah.
So how involved has he been, and is he going to see it?
Only if it ever gets to Broadway, because he's quite old now and he's based in New York and he couldn't come over, unfortunately. He's not particularly involved, but I've updated him all the way. He's super excited, and you know, I'm going to send you a video of it.
Do you mean when we go to Broadway?
I was like, no pressure, Neil, right? None at all. Okay, so it's funny, when the announcement was made that a musical was going to, that this was going to be a musical, it seemed to me quite a risky decision, and there was a bit of a backlash, like, is this an appropriate title to do post-Me Too? Neil, as the producer, was that something that you considered when you took on the project? And I also wonder then if that is partly why you got the lovely Charlotte next to you involved to get her to cast an eye.
To be honest, Charlotte and I were friends anyway, and I'd always wanted to work with her, and I thought she'd be a great, great fit. And when I approached her, I was thrilled that she said yes, which was very exciting. But definitely, it's great to have more than one perspective. Yeah, we thought it would be risky, but when I read the treatment by these two, it was an intelligent reimagining of the piece, which I had a lot of input, so I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm really interested in as a director is like to look back on stories that people know and reassess them and reimagine them. And one of my touchstones, I don't know if any of you saw Cyrano de Bergerac that Jamie Lloyd directed last year, and it kind of, post-pandemic, I don't know, it's all like a blur to me, those years. But that was like a really good example of something that completely made me reassess this story. It was, to me, I grew up on like Gérald Depardieu and this kind of romantic story, and he sort of stripped it away and went, actually, it's a story about two men pretending to be someone else, and this woman is left in the middle who falls in love with neither of them, and is being manipulated through that. And I found that fascinating as a director, and I just thought, you know, what a brilliant thing to do is to take something that is seen as romantic and really go, let's reassess the stories that we've grown up on, or let's reassess the stories that we have and go, what does it mean today? So obviously when they approached me, I was like, what a decent proposal. What are you going to do with that? And they said, well, one of the things, so many things, but core to it was putting Rebecca centre. And I think in the film, for those of you who've seen the film, I mean, Demi Moore doesn't really have any agency at all. I keep going back to this wonderful moment where, I mean, it's just brilliant, terrible cinema, where Robert Redford, I've said this to the cast, they're bored of it, but he just like, he opens the door and he says, he doesn't quite say this, but he sort of says, little flower, go out into the world and you could choose who you want to be with. And you're like, fuck off. You know? like you're this old guy and you like turn up and you tell this woman she can choose who she wants to be with. And I was like, let's take that story and let's see what it is. And I think when I talked to Dylan and to Michael, they were like, that's the story we want to tell, is the post-Me Too story, where it's not Robert Redford kind of going, yeah, I'm romantic. And I think that was quite an interesting kind of casting decision that they made. And we want to tell something different. And I think what we did in this show, we were very conscious about bringing Akko and Norman's character, Larry and Jonny, to the same age. So it was less that sort of older man sort of swooping in and picking up the woman, but really making it about Rebecca's story and having her in the middle. And of course, because the feminist Michael Conley also felt it was really important that we have the other female voice in it as well, which was Jacqui's character, Annie. So it was re-evaluating this old story, and I think when they told me that, I was like, yeah, I'm on board. I'm in.
Okay, now let's bring the performers into this. First of all, you guys were not in the room when we asked questions, but how many of you had read, before this project, had read the book, Indecent Proposal? None. Seen the film, the movie? You think you're not sure? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, awesome. So, and when you heard about it, when you were approached about it, did you have any qualms? Did you think, oh, I don't know, this is a bit of a risky subject to take on? Let's start with the women, given what Charlotte has just said.
I think there's a temptation now to go, me too. Didn't all the men go, we solved it now, never speak of it again. Do you know what I mean? Like, me too, that's finished, solved that, check. Let's never talk or deal with anything that we ever did. And it's like, well, these still complicated situations still happen, they're still real, they're still here, they're still, you know, I've got some of my young pupils here, and that, like, they still have, like, not, I mean, hopefully never this, girls, but they, but, you know, they still have, like, complicated things said to them, and they still deal with complicated things. We haven't solved feminism, so why would we not talk about some of the funny stories and positions we get ourselves into?
Nice. And did you say your pupils are here?
Yeah, 2 of my pupils, and they weren't allowed to come, but they are.
So Lizzy, what do you teach? What do you teach?
Well, I directed them in one of in their youth show, and they're both very good actually, so I hope they're okay.
They'll be giving their critique later. Jacqui, what about you? You remember the 80s, maybe, same as me?
Yeah,
yeah.
I was born in '63.
Something.
So yeah, I do remember the 80s. I was asked to come and do the workshop and I was just so impressed the way we were invited to discuss and talk about it, and because it was in the hands of Charlie, who's a wonderful director. I didn't feel worried because I knew that there would be a slant on it that would sort of get us through. When we were rehearsing, I think everyone else has heard this, but there was a young girl. I was in the green in the toilet or something, learning my lines during the audition, the workshop. What do you call it? Was it an audition?
A workshop.
A workshop.
Felt like your audition. That was the audition.
And this young girl.
I felt like I was being auditioned. Jacqui Dankworth came into a workshop. It was fantastic.
And this young girl, she was, I don't know, I think she was 19, 20, and she was obviously struggling financially, and she said, oh, what's the story? So she didn't know the story. I told her the story, and she said, well, it's obvious, of course you'd sleep with him for $1 million. So, I mean, there is a I don't know, it's interesting the way the young might see it compared to a different generation.
Well, I'm glad that you raised that, because there is obviously a great big moral question at the centre of this story. So let's just get it out in the open. Let's get the audience involved too. Okay. Raise your hands, people. Would you sleep with a handsome stranger, maybe Akko Mitchell, a handsome stranger for $1 million? Who would do it?
Only over 16s can answer!
Okay, yes. Who has an answer? So all of you on the stage besides Norman wouldn't do it? Who would do it? Who would do it? Okay, all right. And who would have a problem who would be tormented if their partner did it? And who raised their hands to both? So this is great. So it is a really great premise for a story. Okay, so we didn't hear though from Norman and Akko, although we so yeah, what did you guys, as the men coming into the story, looking at it afresh, what were your perceptions of this question, this story, changed by being involved?
Yeah, what happened, Norman?
and also, Cass, like, how much did you talk about this, Charlotte? How much did you guys talk about this in the rehearsal room? This moral question.
We had so many conversations. We constantly.
Yeah.
Not really. No.
No.
We had.
You saved it for the Q&A.
We just knew, Terri, you were coming in, so I was like, hold that thought until. Did we? Well, am I right?
I think the conversation has been ongoing.
Yeah.
It is
But
not
we didn't
necessarily
have a sort of
restricted to the
sit-down.
rehearsal room.
Yeah.
It's at lunch, it's after work, it's all the time.
Yeah.
There's so many moral dilemmas actually in the piece. So there's so much to look at.
That's
Yeah.
really fantastic you mentioned that, because I also think with your character, the way that you talk about the winners and losers in life, and the idea that someone that you think you should just be able to buy whatever you want and get whatever you want, and that's you're entitled to that.
Yeah.
How do you get into that space to think that way?
To be honest with you, something clicked one day, and I was like, this is like a Trump thing, you know, and which is actually why I was like, this is such a relevant story. People being lured by power and influence, when they really shouldn't be, you know. But that allure is there, and the message is actually just love each other, you know. And so I was very happy to help be the opposition to push that message of just love each other. You know?
Yeah.
That's what Annie wants, isn't it?
Yeah.
She just wants you to love each other.
Now, before we come to Carly's question, I do just want to point out that we have on stage the musical arranger, and I'm going to get all the terms wrong, musical supervisor and arranger, as well as musical director. What is the difference, guys? John, tell me what's the difference between...
John,
obviously
you've got more titles than me. Do you want it?
That's a cheat, my friend. That's a cheat. What's the difference?
Yeah. So the supervisor and the arranger does what versus the musical director?
I guess I've been involved with the project since the first workshop, which was February 2019. So I've kind of been sitting on this music for 2.5 years. So I guess because we've evolved, when we got to production, we went down more actor muso route. I was definitely not going to act because that's not my thing. So I was very happy to kind of take a step back. And originally I took, Dylan's been a really great collaborator, because I've managed to do my own thing with the songs and like have a lot of kind of creative input with how the songs sound and how they evolved, and you know, so Dylan's been very open like that.
So it's like a football that you pass on. So you write it, you hand it on to John.
I mean, he's a true musician. And so I took my simple songs and said, John, what can you do with them? And he told me what you see today.
And then so what you decide, like what instruments do you? So do we get to thank you for the accordion?
We thank Connor for like playing accordion.
I always get a special little thrill when I see an accordion on stage. Yeah, you know.
It's a joyful instrument, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so you decide, you put it all together, and then Connor, when do you get involved?
I mean, my job is just to soak up all the wonderful directing that John does in the room, and when after we get to Press Night and beyond, it'll be my job to try and retain that, keep the band and the cast in order, and look after the musical integrity of Dylan's vision and John's wonderful interpretation, and just keep it running as best we can.
Well, can you do it well?
And that's what, I think that's a really interesting way of saying it. It is a football. It goes from Dylan, John interprets it and brings the cast in. He's off next week, like the bird in the film. Isn't that it?
Yeah, that's it.
And then Connor takes over. I love that metaphor.
There we go. You can borrow it anytime. Okay, Carly, what's your question?
Well,
have you forgotten? Sorry.
No. I forget a lot of things, but this one.
No, I've just kept you waiting so long. I apologize.
No, it's okay. Well, at first, I really liked the way your view changed, or seemed to change, when you said, I love you, you said, you better, the entire time, and then one moment it changed, and then I really loved that moment, because I felt like you were on fire? Yeah. Like you took control. And that was really nice to see. And the next one, you kind of took it away from me, because we've been discussing since 5 this morning, what would we do? And then you just asked the question. So sorry, but it's already been answered.
Okay.
What do you think? Well,
she already did it!
no, not since 5.
I love it.
Too much information. Really great point. You recognizing that moment of I love you better. I noticed that as well. That flip. I wonder, Norman, tell us a little bit about what do you think is going on with Jonny's relationship with Rebecca, and do they have a future?
You mean once the light goes down? Well, I mean, I don't want to spoil that for anybody who's already made their kind of mind up about what they want to happen or what they'd like to happen. But what we want to believe in is power of love, and you know that at some point or another you can find a way to push on through. It took Jonny some time, you know, to go and figure that out, and obviously he takes a chance coming back and hoping that that's going to be the same with Rebecca. But that's, I mean, that's the biggest central theme of anything that we all really root for, and that's love. That's what we want to feel, and I think that's what takes our audiences through the journey, because essentially we believe in love. We don't want it to be about money. And then we answer the question, we think, yeah, I would do it. And I was just loving. I put my hand up twice, of course, because it's always different. You know, when it's you think, I know what I'm doing. But if it's if it's your other half, the person you love, that's what Jonny goes through. It's this awful kind of turmoil of the worst projection of this incredible night that they may be having together. And it's because of love and insecurity. But, you know, we want to know that love wins every time.
Yeah. We want our happy ending. Yes. Okay, sorry, yes. Nor do you guys over here, so you first.
Okay, I'm cheeky kid, but so as a divorced man, I know love doesn't always win. And I apologise, but I'm going to use character names because...
Do it.
That's fine.
Well, so Rebecca's written as the heroine. Jonny's written as the villain, which I really get. But Larry, you kind of missed a trick. So for $1 million, you should have had both of them.
$2 million. Exactly. That's problem solved.
I got the question. Sorry.
Indecent Proposal, the sequel.
I just wondered, so the original one set in when $1 million was worth something.
Yeah.
Where's the inflation, guys? It was like $10 million.
Well, it's still set in the 80s, though.
Oh, okay.
We talked a lot about that in rehearsals actually, and we had the match for match. I mean, you know, we did look at what does $1 million, what would that represent now? Can someone remind me?
2.3 million.
£500 million to buy a fat and elephant car.
Sorry. just to let you know, I did have this conversation with my boyfriend, and he is in the audience, and I asked him this question, and he said, $1 million, it would get us a small 2-bed. I don't know if it's worth it. You know, so yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. But I will say this is very much definitely set in the 80s, and if that's of interest, to talk about why it is. Michael, whose work I love, and I've been a huge fan of his work for ages, and he often talks about this thing about we can see stories better with a little bit of distance from them.
Absolutely.
So keeping them in the 80s, I think, was really important. And on that note, I just want to put a shout out, like, the costumes in this show were absolutely amazing, and the whole kind of like hair and what everyone is wearing. I just think the team that we've had on board for this has been incredible. You might not know, but in the interval we were a little late going up. That's because a dress ripped and they were upstairs sewing on zips so we could carry on. So I just want to say a massive thank you to designers.
And well done, travel director, because musicals always have a big team behind the scenes. So let's just name check the other creators who aren't with us tonight. So we've got Anna Kelsey, who's set in costume design. Lee Davis, sound. Hartley J. Kemp, lighting. Megan Rarity, Jacqui, costume, assistant director James Buller, Jane McMurtry, choreographer.
Where is she? Stand up, Jane!
Wait, okay. And there are a whole bunch of other people because it is a big team. And this is also a good opportunity for me to say, get your program.
May I? Sorry.
Not yet.
Just the other people, of course.
Okay, go on,
It's the band who are also an amazing part of the storytelling. And I think for me as a director, what was extraordinary was to have them in rehearsals.
Yeah.
So they felt like they were part of Annie's team, and they were there throughout.
The band is
so that was really
while we're on the program, I learned a new word tonight, thanks to Mr. Michael Conley. Diegenetic.
Diegetic. Carla's favorite word.
Wait, what, how am I saying it?
Diegetic.
Diegetic. Oh, see, I've been got it wrong. Did anyone else know what diegetic is? Explain to me, and then I want some of the performers to give an example from the show. What is diegetic?
So diegesis is the world of the play. So a diegetic song is a song within the show. So the characters know that they're singing a song in front of an audience. And a non-diegetic song is more in a traditional musical where an internal monologue from the character is set to the music that only the audience can hear. So that's the difference. And most musicals have a mix of diegetic and non-diegetic songs.
Actors, did you know that?
Absolutely not.
No. Okay, so what was an example of a diegetic song from tonight?
Well, Annie's songs were diegetic.
Diegetic and non-diegetic? I'm looking at you, Norman.
You come tomorrow.
Easy way. Wait and see.
Yeah.
Well, we're on the subject.
So you've all learned something. Okay, a couple more audience questions. Anyone? Yep, here.
I thought it was very interesting in the writing having the character of Annie as an anchor as such. That's how I looked at the role. And very important. She stirred the pot, but she was also there to sort of make mischief with people. And I loved that writing for that character very much. So I had very much in the hands of Jacqui's perfect casting.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
These guys now, you got to shut me up, Terry. I'm sorry, but I would say that in a way, I don't think the piece works without Annie's character. She's kind of the heart that kind of carries through the humour, who keeps it bubbling, who sort of keeps it real, and everyone keeps gravitating towards her and the ruckus room. So yeah, I think it's a beautiful performance.
Yeah, it is, and you've got some beautiful songs as well, Jacqui. Do you have a favourite of the songs that you've seen?
I like them all, but I guess I like Will You Remember at the end. Yeah, I like that one.
It's my favourite.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. Okay, in the back? Yep. You?
I just wanted to say that I kind of disagree with what this gentleman said earlier. I didn't feel like Jonny was the villain. I felt like he was like a misguided dreamer. And I felt like Larry was definitely the villain. There was no like doubt about that. It just seemed like the search department wanted to just like destroy something, to take control of it, and that's how I felt when I was watching it. And I just felt very sorry for both like the couple basically. And it was a shame obviously at the end that, you know, we didn't know whether it worked out or not. I feel like they probably did go their separate ways. That's how I viewed it at the end, and that's why I was like sad by the end of it, because I was like, oh, you know, it's a tough thing to work through. So yeah.
Well, don't ask him for marriage guidance.
I agree with your outcome.
I was hoping that Jonny was going to suck it to him. Really, punch him. Especially when he did that with Rebecca. That's where you need it.
That's more likely, I think.
Here. And then
First of all, I want to say that I really enjoyed the show. I thought it was marvellous and totally different from what I expected. I started to watch the movie the other night ago and stopped halfway through because I didn't want to know the ending. But yes, it was great to see a different production, a different view of how the movie was. But the question I have is more about how did you think that it was going to be no, I'm going to move on, sorry.
No, we love
How did it
Received?
was going to be?
No, I didn't think it was.
We'll come back to you.
Yes, ladies.
Get it. Get it.
Oh yeah, so that's it. So how do you think that they, because I'm of a certain age, I remember the movie, and I remember how it almost seemed romantic, the sort of like the older man and the opportunity to go there. So it's more about how did you think this might be interpreted in a modern audience and capture them, because people that don't know Indecent Proposal as a movie, how would they be attracted to this and know that this is what's going to happen, and there might be this sort of like challenge between being faithful and unfaithful or whatever.
Well, let me, if I may, ask Neil that first, because you're the producer. You're going to think, who is your audience? Is it an older audience, younger audience? How do you appeal to a younger audience?
I mean, it's been very interesting because we've had 4 previews, and the audience has been kind of 18 to 25 and 45 plus. And I'm sure there's differences here, but not as much as the gap in between. And I understand the older demographic because, like me, they'll have seen the movie and want to see it because they liked it, or want to see it because they didn't like it and what have we done with it. What's interesting is the new generation. I think that's more musical theatre lovers, new musical lovers, or someone who's seen the strapline and thinks that looks intriguing, what's that about? And Southwark has a strong mailing list, just people that have a passion for new musical theatre. So I think that's kind of the mix.
Yeah. And Charlie, do you want to add something?
I think it's a really good question. I don't know, I often get, what do you want an audience to take away? I think I just want them to take away with loads of questions and go, I think the thing that's made my night is the fact that you think that he's the villain and you think that he's the villain. And I'm like, that to me is like when you've done something right where you can have different responses from different audiences, and I'd like those I'd love it if you could just go into the foyer and hear people debating it and thinking different perspectives.
Absolutely. And they hear some very original.
I love seeing a production when it's brand new. It's so exciting to see something that's, fresh out the traps. And I just wondered how this has changed from the very first rehearsal to tonight. And I saw it on Monday.
Oh my
gosh. I know.
Our first repeat customer.
And I can already see the difference between Monday and tonight. I just wondered how it's changed over the weeks.
Well, how long did you have rehearsal? How long were you rehearsing?
4 weeks.
4 weeks. Okay, so I know Charlie has a view, but let's hear from somebody else. Who wants to say how you think it's changed from the first rehearsal?
Well, in all honesty, there's a history even before rehearsals. It is a good couple of years old now, and it's never stopped evolving. And what's wonderful about that is the lack of, I'd say, ego around, wanting to make this kind of work. There's no denying we are on a journey, and we've got several more previews to get through. But each day we come in and we put our faith in our hands in the creative team with what they want to try and achieve today. And the thing is, you're the only one that's seen 2 different versions, but most people are only seeing one version of a show because the next night is completely different. So everybody's getting something unique, and who knows what it's going to be like by press night next week. But it's going to be exciting.
And just remembering something specific, but I think this is right. Probably in our first workshop, there wasn't a scene with the scene you have with Annie and Larry at the piano. So that didn't exist right in the beginning of the initial draft, and we felt that these 2 characters were so very different and were so important in different ways in the show that they had to come together to show the experience of what we're trying to put across. So that came in like draft 2 or 3 after the first workshop. So that's an example of something which we didn't show right.
No, we did quite a lot of work on, what was going on internally for the character, and I think that we all sort of started playing that a lot. And I think one thing I discovered was laughter through tears, you know, the painful situations and how characters use humour to break through. And I think maybe some other characters have that as well. I can't speak for them, but I think that was one thing that changed a lot, really, was trying to not play the tragedy, but there's that lurking underneath that you push through.
I'm just a little bit aware, Neil, of the time, and we have lots of people who still want to ask questions. Are we okay to keep going?
I'm as fine as anyone is, but if anyone needs to go, feel free, of course.
Anyone go for trains and stuff if you need to train?
Anyone that needs to go, please do.
Just everyone move at the same time. Do a little move. So you don't have to feel embarrassed. It's like, get your train if you need to get your train, because I've been there before. It's hard. Yeah. Do it, train.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Lovely. Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay. And Yao and now. Oh wait, one more lever. Come on. Two more. You're staying. Okay. Right. All right. So people left in the room. You are the diehards. I love it. And still so many hands. Okay. I'm going to come back to you because I'm going to talk to this man. No, the man. No, you. Yes. Sorry. No, not you. Not the person in the pink.
I just want to touch on the males and the females. Dangerous topic, I know.
Yeah.
I'll try and be brave. It's very interesting that at least two people in the room saw Jonny, at least one person, as the villain. I certainly didn't see him that way, but he does come across in it, it seems to me, as a bit of a hypocrite, because really it's made fairly clear he wants her to do it and get the money in, and you go and you do that then, and then he has all these problems with it afterwards. He comes across as rather hypocritical. And turning to Rebecca, it seems to me you're portrayed as doing it really for love of him.
Yeah.
And afterwards as well, you're the one who's kind of cool with what you've done, and you know, arguably rightly so.
Yeah.
And it's what I'm trying to say is, for you it's easy, but for Jonny, he's the one having this whole dilemma afterwards. Meanwhile, you've got Annie, who's a wonderful, lovely, warm character, and the anchor of the show in many ways, and that's great, and we all love her. And then of course you've got Larry as really quite a villain, although not a complete villain. But so once again, as so often now, the men once again are portrayed in really overall fairly negative ways. Though there's lots of positive things about Jonny, and he really loves you, and that's great. And you know, I feel sorry for men.
So the question is,
and sorry, one more point. If Rebecca had a bit more dilemma in there, it might make it a little more interesting. Because you could put a lovely dilemma in with Jonny, who's really a sympathetic character that we all like, and he loves her. But maybe Rebecca needs a bit of that too. It might make it better.
So you think it's a bit unfair to the men?
Yes, a little.
Okay. So I'm just paraphrasing there.
I'm not defending their actions.
No,
I'm just saying how it comes across.
Okay, all right, okay. Anybody who's got their hands up want to challenge that? No, we've heard from you, Marty. We've heard from you. Somebody we haven't heard from. Lady, yes. There.
I think Jonny's actually quite manipulative because he makes Rebecca feel bad for not doing it because they need the money together to make them happier. And then once she does it, he's like, he makes it seem like Lizzy's done it. Rebecca's done it because she wanted to.
I think you're kind of agreeing with the man. I think because he's saying basically.
I don't feel sorry for Jonny.
Lizzy.
I love you. I think that Rebecca isn't a perfect party in this. I do think that there is a complicated thing where I do think before it comes at her, there is a warmth, and obviously Acco as Acco is so charming that I do think there is a complicated thing that she's then like, it's not complicated for you. How dare you feel that? So I think that I feel complicated. Just saying, I think it doesn't feel simple.
Yeah.
Can I just respond really quickly?
Yes, you can, Terri.
Right. I've got lots to say about it. I think it's a really interesting point. I do think it's also interesting to note that it was written by 2 men as well, which is really interesting. Yeah, I've put a take on it, but fundamentally I'm directing their piece. I guess for me, I've always seen it like Faustus, is that Jonny is the Dr. Faustus character, who is complicated and who is dark, and I don't really have a problem with having difficult people, you know, at the centre of stories. And I think he wants money. He thinks that that's going to make his life complete, and so he does, absolutely, you're right, manipulate her towards doing this thing, and then he realised that he was you know, he, as Faustus does, he loses his soul. I don't want to sound really grandiose, like comparing it to Faustus, but I'm saying that there is a kind of a history of characters throughout plays where these men go into this complicated place, and yeah, they make a decision, and they're not all evil, but they make the wrong decision and potentially put their soul on the line.
Does the man who adapted the book want to?
Yeah, I would just say, for me, I think my favorite playwriting principle is that specificity leads to universality. So the more specific you make a story, somehow, the more everybody can relate to it. So this was never meant to represent men and women. I don't ever want to write an allegory. This is just about a specific couple and what happens to them when this situation occurs. And that, I think that's all that we just try to be honest with these particular people and tell the story of what would happen to this relationship that I adore. And I love every single one of these characters, even Larry. I think we've tried to make them three-dimensional, human, flawed characters. You know, everybody on the stage, and so I think that's what we set out to do. And it's not meant to represent a gender or a time period. It's just this couple and what happens to them.
I am fascinated by Larry's backstory, just the little details of him like playing in a wedding band when he was 16. Yes.
I just wanted to ask, what are the joys and what are the challenges of creating a new musical?
Oh, nice one. Who joys and challenges of new musicals? Well, Neil, has your hair gone even greyer?
There's always a huge challenge for new musicals in that in England they're not particularly well resourced or supported, nor is there a strong audience for them. And we've got some of MMD in tonight. It was only 10 years ago that the Arts Council started investing in musicals. They've been doing it in plays for 50, 60, 70 years, places like Royal Court. So it's kind of new territory and very under-supported and not really got its own audience. There's not a venue that just does musicals. So audience is one of the hardest things, because you kill yourself to create something wonderful and you're not sure people are going to come.
Yeah. Actors we have amongst you, you guys have a huge amount of credit, many big shows. We're all familiar with West End stuff. Is it more exciting to do a new musical? No one just made a face.
Absolutely. I mean, I've done mostly takeover roles, you know, so to metaphorically and physically be somewhat stripped back just down to your pants and see what you can achieve with something new. It's thrilling and risky, and you know, look, I know there's a cynicism attached to a lot of new musicals, especially when it's relating to something we've already heard of before, and there's certainly a stream of 80s kind of theme going on in the moment in the West End, but we shouldn't be cynical about, you know, the originality or the sense of wanting to put a really strong message out there that is timeless, but just in a very different scenario. And you know, if it wasn't for the likes of Neil, who is you know, an incredible producer, and I don't just, in fact, I feel I do him a disservice by saying he's an incredible human being. You know, he's taken care of us from day one, and he's always made sure that we keep this wonderful camaraderie in the room, and his belief in us is...
My 13-year-old son's here, so report home to your mum.
It took his time to clap.
I will second that. He is a lovely man. Okay, how many more hands do we have? We have one. You've already had one. We have two. Okay, you guys are going to be the last two questions, okay?
So the lady in the pink has been done.
Oh, who? Oh, no! Oh, right. Okay, 3 questions. Okay, right. Let's hear them and we'll decide which order we take.
Well, I'll be very brief then. You mentioned about how challenging it is for sort of new musicals and how long, even without a copy of the musical, it takes to set up. But my son and I enjoyed it so much. I mean, how many others have you got in the pipeline?
Oh, no, okay. I was going to ask something similar, so we're going to come back to that.
That's a 10-second answer.
Wait. Okay, yeah, and your question?
I want to say I really enjoyed it, and the film and the book was such a long time ago that whenever you watch an adaptation, I personally never had any anticipation where it was going to go, because I can't even remember the film and the book. But I really enjoyed it, and thank you very much.
Oh, was there a question?
I did think of one.
Okay, all right. We'll go
So when you adapt something, do you ever think that, like, I never think the adaptation is the same as the original, but this was different from the original. So do you ever think that adapting is just, you can go wherever you want with it because it's a performance, it just happens to have the same name and basis as...
So I guess maybe it's like, how much freedom do you feel that you have when adapting from other source material?
I really like comparing books and films, and books and whatever performance is based on something else.
Yeah. So I guess maybe it's 2 parts. How much freedom do you have? And maybe, Charlie, do you think that a story has a natural form? Michael?
I think Michael should answer.
Okay, let's have Michael and
Well, I think it depends. I think it depends on who you got the rights from, what the rights are, how well known it depends, and it depends on what kind of writer you are as well. I think what you have to do is find the essence of why you want to tell this story and hold on to that, and sometimes only that. Because if it's going to live on the stage, it's got to be something completely different than a book or a film. It's just completely. So I think you've got to hold on to the essence of what you want to hold on to, and let that guide you. And then I think I think there are story structures that work. For me, I use a lot of film structures just because we've got more books about screenwriting than we do anything else. So I use that for structure to help me at the beginning, and then again, once it gets on the page, you let go and let the actors tell you what you're doing. Or Charlie.
Yeah, quick question. Will there be a cast album and sheet music available?
I think it's a very good question.
Probably. So do me a favour, email, there's a contact at the INDECENTProposalmusical.com.
Okay.
Email, we'd like the cast album, then we've got you on file, and then we can get back to you when it's ready.
Yes. Okay. So
will there be sheet music?
In due course.
It's all on my laptop.
You're running to perform. You're running to perform, right? Yeah. So Neil, gentleman asked about the future. So first of all, let's just make note that you have produced lots and lots of shows before, but this is the first under 10 to 4 production.
Yeah.
This is your debut. For those who might not know, what does the term 10 to 4 mean in musical theatre?
Well, this is a venture that Dylan and I have both been involved in, isn't it? So what would you say 10 to 4 is?
10 to 4 is about trying to work 2 hours less than 9 to 5.
It doesn't mean anything.
I love that. That is actually what it is.
That's what it is.
Is it?
Yeah.
I love it. I didn't know that. Okay. And so, well done on your debut
Thank
for
you.
10 to 4 production. So what is next?
Next is a musical version of this Battle of Cable Street called Cable Street, a Musical Riot. So watch out for that, by Tim Gilvin and Alex Konevsky.
And what stage are you at with that?
Workshopping.
Okay. And what happens next with Indecent Proposal?
Let's see how Tuesday goes.
No pressure. No pressure about it. So I like to normally end with like one question that everybody has to answer, but we've got such a big panel and we haven't got that much time left. So I'm going to tell you though that I'm going to give somebody on the stage here with me $1 million tonight. You're all winners. I'm going to give you $1 million. You don't even have to sleep with me. What will you do with it? Who's got the best answer?
$1 million?
Yeah, obviously you're not going to get any property in Elephant and Castle. Neil, what are you going to do with
What are we going to put on a musical?
Yeah! Okay, who's joined us? Who are you?
Oh, hello, I'm George.
Cece is our favourite character in the show.
Okay, so join me as everybody. Oh, yeah, one other thing. Audience, particularly the diehards, you are now our champions for this show. Woo! Yes? So I need you to go out and tell everybody, come and come again. Are you going to come again?
Yes.
Yeah, you're going to come again as well. So it's booking here until, Neil, it's booking here until?
Booking until the 27th of November.
27th of November. So go and tell everyone. And for those of you who are on social media, after we give them the big clap, we're going to budge up and we're going to get a group shot. And everybody who's on social media, will you take a photo and share that? Yes? Everyone's nodding? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so join me in thanking Cece and Connor and Lizzy and Akka and Norman and Jacqui and John and Charlie and Neil and Michael and Dylan.